What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we take a look back at the early works of seasoned comedians before they were seasoned with this week's guest, Aaron Bullitt. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, I'm G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Done Way Past Funny. Thank you for joining us as we continue our interview with comedian Aaron Bullitt. Please enjoy.
I've always had a big imagination ever since I was a kid. Like I love to daydream. I love to think. I love to question. So comedy gives me that space to just allow my mind to go these places. And I feel like people hold themselves back. Like they hold themselves back. Like, well, I shouldn't laugh at that, or I shouldn't think this way. And I know I've talked about it, but I really believe that. And I really believe that like comedy is like, because some people say comedy, we're modern day philosophers, we're scholars, whatever the fuck. To me, is we just say shit that everyone thinks. Like, I think if more people were honest about what they think about things, like that whole concept of, like I said, Superman. Like, I would love to live in a world where I see Superman go, "And the land of the free," and you're like, "That's amazing." And I've had people go, "Well, that doesn't make sense," right? But you can watch Rocky, which is a made-up movie, and he fights communism. But you can believe that and say, well, that's great. So it's like, those are the things in comedy that make it such a beautiful art form. Is what if, like, just those questions and those thoughts and feelings and emotions that as adults we tend to hide, because like, that's why I love this guy, his name was the Cowboy Comedian, and Spike Davis. I was on a cruise with my family a few years ago.
No, are they influences?
They're not. Well, I'll tell you my influences, but they're influences because I got to see them. I got to see another side of comedy. Like, being on a cruise comedian is like a different industry.
That's on my bucket list. I want to do cruise ships.
That's funny. My girl April said the same thing. She would like to just try it. And I'd be like, yeah. So I just asked, and I was like, hey, like, I'm an aspiring comedian. I've only been doing it for like 2 years. Do you mind if I like go with you to a comedy show or sit down and ask you questions, right? And so I kind of got to see them. And the 2 bits of advice I got from the Cowboy Comedian was inviting your spouse, like, let her be a part of your business, which I love, because that, one, that's someone you trust, and I have that. But Spike Dave was just telling me, because I watched his set, he was crushing it. I forgot, I'm trying to remember the story. He had his whole bit. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was a bit about some cartoon. I can't think of it, but what I loved about it is he did it in front of kids, and he had these kids like laughing, right? They were laughing because they could visually see where he was trying to go. Even the Cowboy Comedian, he simply just made a joke about eating ice cream. He was, you know what I mean, right? But when they did those jokes in front of adults, it was a different reaction. Some adults just laughed, but you can tell they were like, some people were like, and I'm like, huh. So you're willing to hold yourself back from laughing and having a good time because, and I don't think it's always necessarily people. I think it's environment. So there are some people that grow up in environments that they're not allowed to express their emotions, or they're not allowed to think a certain way, because like, we're the Smiths, and Smith men and women do this, which I think is the stupidest shit ever. So, it's kind of like in the military.
It's not like they're the Joneses. It's just,
right.
I can see the Joneses acting like that, but the Smiths, get the fuck out of here.
That's why they live on the other side of the street. Fuck those guys. Like it's like in the military, right? Like they have this thing. You made me think about this like an hour ago, but they have a thing when you go to boot camp of like, so when you first get there, they strip you naked, do all that, change clothes and all that shit. But they have this thing where they teach you. It's not teaching you, but they kind of get you on a certain schedule. So you're in this classroom for like, I think it's like 2 or 3 days, but they get you on a sleeping pattern. So you're conditioned to like their environment. And that's kind of what I think of comedy is like, especially being in the military, of like, oh, we're all conditioned to think certain ways and do certain things. Like I have a story about when I was on deployment, One of my favorite songs was Electric Avenue. I just liked the song. I thought it was and it was my alarm clock. So for the first like month of deployment, it was a year-long deployment. So we're out to sea for a whole year. I think in total we were only on land for like a month or two. But for the first month, every morning at 5:30, we're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue, right?
Yeah.
For a whole month. So the next following month, I switched to nights because I work days. So when you come off of night shift, you're usually getting off right when people get up at 6:30. So I'm like going to sleep 6:30, like 6:30 rolls around, and everybody in my berthing or area was singing, "We're gonna rock down to Electric Avenue," and it made me think, oh, you can condition someone to think and do so. Like you said, it's like with the sign, right? Like you said. So that's kind of how I think in comedy of like, okay, so I want Aaron Bullitt crowds to be conditioned to think openly. I want you to like open your inner mind's eye and think of what if, because that's the fun to me. That's where I get my kicks. Is I love coming up with it. Like I have a joke that I'm working on. I just came up with this joke. It's like a premise, but I just came up with it, and it was that I grew up in a generation that if you wanted to eat out, they were like, we can make it at home. Like, you don't got to do all that shit, right? So, and you realize all social media is just people making shit at home. That's all social media is. Everyone can make their own Pot Pocket. Everyone can make their own Pop-Tart, their own drink. So that's kind of what I kind of like to do is like show you that's one thought as a kid we had of you make it at home to now as adults, that's all we're doing. And conditioning works in that beautiful way of like it frames your mind to think a certain way. And what playing football, being in the military, living, being one of the only black kids, usually one of the only black kids in predominantly white environments.
Go ahead. Aaron.
No, you're good.
Hey, baby, sorry, I'm in the middle of a show.
Back to what we were saying, I just think that's kind of my gripe, my state of affairs with comedy. Is that I think that people aren't honest. I think we live in a world where now everyone's talking about sex, and which is fine. It's okay,
But they're talking about a lot of them talk about things they'll never do or haven't done, and that's it's just like that's what I was talking about earlier about the premise of, well, at least with me, I don't care if somebody's style is to just make shit up out of whole cloth. That's fine. That's just not my deal. I prefer I prefer people to tell stories that I can't tell.
Right. Or it's just like now one of the biggest I'll say this, I'll say another topic that everyone's different, but I kind of notice is people talk about, the pandemic, how that made them feel, or technology, which is fine, but I feel like there's no imagination. Like to me, comedy now is just you stand up there and you say like what you like. It has to be. I won't say it's too honest. It's too. I'm trying to find a way to say this. It's too, like I said, I think I said literal, right? Like that's funny to me. Like that joke where we were saying like my wife when we kiss, if I got it, you got it. Like that's funny because it's real, but it's like you're interpreting the situation. And it's kind of like the business side. It's like, there's some comedians that are like, I don't want to do social media because I don't want to be a social media comic. Or I've met people that are like, I don't want to be a social media rapper. And I'm like, well, it's how you look at it. Like you can look at it like, oh, I don't want to be labeled, but it's just marketing.
It's also opportunity cost for me because like there's only so many hours in a day.
Right.
I am very good at writing humor. Extremely good at writing humor, and I do okay performing it, but I'm really good at writing it. My wife is amazed because, like I said, I have I write for a podcast where they do political satire sketches.
Mm-hmm.
I write for them, and matter of fact, I think of them as like Saturday Night Live without the budget because it's all audio, and I write critical joke theory, which is my thing. Every week, it's headlines headlines to punchlines, basically.
Yeah, I've actually, me and April watched a couple episodes. Really funny. Like it's
Thanks.
really smart. Like
And-
I like that kind of humor where you're engaging my thought process on an idea.
Yeah, and that's something that I think about. I write that on Wednesdays. I write it on Wednesday, record it on Thursday every week. Write it on Wednesday, record it on Thursday, show it on Friday. So all that stuff, and they used to be 10 minutes long, but now because I'm on Coffee with the Dog, and I want them to show it, I reduced it to like 5 minutes.
Okay.
Because when I first did it, it used to be between 10 and 15 minutes. Because I had all this news to cover, and in the middle I had a segment called commercial break, and commercial break was not a real commercial. It's me talking about commercials that are broken, and it's just exposing like the one I just doing about Tavala. That oven is like that little oven where the people like the meal, they scan the card. Okay. And first of all, you can't get this out of a microwave. Of course not, because you can't put metal in a microwave. You can't. See,
right.
But the guy, he does this. He takes his pan and he takes it and he puts it in the oven. And at the very bottom, it says like he's been a user for 2 years. Okay, and then he goes, and this is the best part. I don't have to do anything. And it cooks itself, blah, blah, blah. Then he opens it up and he reaches his hand in and he burns his fucking hand because he reaches in without an oven mitt. Okay, he reaches in, he grabs it, he lets go, and then you see him with the oven mitt the next shot. They cover away. So, first of all, how stupid. They just said that he's been doing this for 2 years and he's still reaching for without a fucking oven mitt. And how dumb are they to keep showing that commercial for 2 years now where the guy is so fucking stupid that he just they don't fix that commercial.
They're like, we're gonna keep it. It's fine.
We spent our money. We're going to keep it. Or are they so stupid? It's like maybe that Tavala. My premise is that Tavala is not for busy people. It's for stupid busy people. That's my whole premise. But so I used to do commercial break, and so commercials that just annoyed me, and that was my commercial break. It was just about commercials that are just broken.
Okay.
So I cut all that out so I could just do like 5 to 6 minutes for for Coffee with the Dog. But yeah, so that plus my regular stand up. I'm writing another 90-minute show. So I'm constantly writing, constantly doing stuff like that. And my wife I don't understand it. And I have a show on Sunday mornings.
Okay.
The Church of The Church of Last Resort.
Yeah.
Where I'm the Dr. Reverend Jelly Roll. That's a 1-hour show I do every Sunday. And I write that on Saturday usually. So if people is like, my wife is, I don't understand how you can just do that. You can just sit there and just write. You just sit there and go, okay, I have a premise. I got an hour show. Okay, let's do this. So I'm kind of prolific like that. But that's not even what I want to talk about. Michael Jackson, you're just talking about the whooping things.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, when my mother was whipping us, my brother would be like, "Mama, mama, 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 mama," and I just kept thinking like that became like, "Mama see, mama sa, mama kusa."
Right.
Mama see, mama kusa. No, say no.
Or like a James Brown, The Payback, like that song. I love that song because to me, that song was him just having a shitty conversation with a friend on the phone. Like, so now, like he's just like he's not singing. He's just like that shit probably happened like 15 minutes ago. It's like, fuck, I gotta just get it out. So,
big payback.
Yeah. Like from my favorite part is I don't know karate, but I know crazy, and I thought. That's some shit you really got to be pissed at somebody to say. Like, that's some shit like, it's on, motherfucker. Like that's like, those are fighting words to me. And I think that's funny that in that song, he used those words and you're like, that had to come from somewhere. Like, that had to come from an argument or a conversation or just like, and that's where, with that Michael Jackson joke, I try to get people to see is like, everything comes from what's that fucking song? Nothing from some whatever
Yeah,
that
Billy
song.
Preston. Nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leave nothing. You gotta have something if you want to be with me.
And that's kind of what I kind of think of like comedy comes from these plays. And I was saying like my comedy comes from my experiences in life, being military, football, being one of the only, usually growing up in an environment where I'm one of the only black kids, and TV. So I think it's not always about like this is me and my problems. It's like I like to show through my jokes of this is where I'm coming from. This is where I'm coming from. Like, this is why I'm the way I am. But hopefully as you watch my set, or, because I wrote with April and a friend of mine, his name, and I don't know where the fuck he's at, but we wrote a sketch show called New News Nightly. And we did like 2 seasons, and New News Nightly is just, imagine if someone had a news station, but it was low budget. I mean, like PBS, like below PBS, like, and as we were writing the show, me and April we were coming up with all these concepts of like, we were watching the news and like, oh, that's funny and this. So I think that's kind of where comedy comes from, is that those inspirations. Because I think I told someone this, but
I used to do a radio show.
Mm-hmm.
I used to run a radio station from my house, an internet radio station from my house back in 1990, 96, 98, from that
Mm-hmm.
time period. And I had this sketch where, again, low budget. Well, it wasn't just low budget; it was my budget. So it was lower than low.
That's funny. It's my budget.
It was a fuck low budget.
Fuck I'm at.
Yeah, fuck low budget. It was my budget. And so I did all the characters, and the traffic guy, we called him Burnout Bill, and the character was actually, he had an ankle bracelet on, so he couldn't go out to cover the traffic from the chopper like he's supposed to.
That's funny.
So,
that is yeah.
So he only could do the traffic from his window. So he would be like, he would be making chopper sounds like this. He'd be like, all right, so the Smiths are driving up. Is this a new car?
That's funny.
And the thing is, I did that for like a month. And I ran out of material because he's like, he can only see the traffic from his room. He's only going to see so much. But it's like, that was what the traffic was like. It was be like, now what I would do is to actually to prep it, I would actually get the real latest, because in my world, he lived off of Jones Falls Expressway. So I would get the traffic for Jones Falls Expressway. So I actually could say, like, he lived there. So people be like, does he really live? Like, so I'll be like, so there's a yellow van parked on the side right next to the 1.3 mile marker, the same 1.3 mile marker where there was a black SUV parked yesterday. That kind of thing.
I was thinking, like, you could have, like, I mean, I would have, that'd been fun. That's like a funny because I'm a huge, and I have a question actually after this, is like, that's funny because like you could have had it to where like he could have had like interviews of like, so what's the traffic like out there? You know what I mean? Or he could have did like, how like you have Uber Eats, like when you deliver a pizza, it shows the tracking. He could have did like, all right, traffic report on my pizza. Like, I mean, there's so many. That's
well,
funny.
Now you can, but 96, 98, they didn't have that.
Okay, or speaking of 96, or you could have did to where, you could have, or maybe if you could have had someone be like a delivery person and maybe have the camera, like you could have did that one, but like that's what's so funny is like, because I'm like you, like I love to write like sketches, because like growing up, it's funny, I had this conversation with April earlier. Growing up, I didn't watch SNL a lot. I watched more like Mad TV and Living Color. So it's funny like how like, to me, that's what's so funny is like jokes and sketches. It's just like where it could go. Like a sketch could go so many different places. And my question is like, I guess, how do you feel about like watching like currently? Like, do you watch SNL or like do you watch any current episodes?
My wife and I have very similar motives in watching comedy. I can't watch this season of SNL. I watch Weekend Update. Because I think Michael Che and Josh, I can't. I can't remember his name.
He's married to Scarlett Johansson. It's the only thing I know.
Yeah, so Mr. Johansson.
Yes, Mr. I like that. He's a gentleman.
Yeah, so the two of them, I like what they do. They're good. They're funny together. So we will watch the opening monologue, and then I fast forward to Weekend Update, and then that's all I watch.
Okay, and like I guess, do you feel like, as someone that writes sketches, do you and a prolific writer, do you feel like, why do you feel like a show like SNL is still on versus a show like A Living Color or Mad TV? They're not on, or like these others. What do you think makes SNL so successful? These other sketch comedies,
the acceptability by the CEOs.
Oh, okay.
That's it. It's the top brass. I'm sorry. In Living Color was like, that was the blackest show on television, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
It was on Fox too, which was like
and that's the other thing. Fox, they were desperate for programming. Right. And matter of fact, and they were trying to find an audience. They were new, and they was trying to find an audience that hadn't been taken yet.
Right.
So black people.
Right.
Well, once they got established, they didn't really want all those black people on their network. That's why when the contracts ended, so did those shows. Even though they were like funny and successful, CEOs, it was like in the football league. They want to be comfortable with people they're comfortable with, their own kind. So yeah, the shows were successful. Now it also just so happens that I think that maybe in their Wayans minds, they may have run their, because I think because the what's his name, Keen Wayans, the oldest one. I think he left the show before the show ended,
right?
Or he was being forced to do it at like a hostage situation. I can't remember the actual the history of it, and somebody can Google it and tell me about it, and I'll go like, okay, fine, that sounds right too. But basically, the reason why those shows aren't on is because CEOs and people, they have an idea of what they feel comfortable with. Okay, so yeah, you'll get a show like Blackish for a little bit, for a while. And it's a token show. It's like, yeah, it's successful. And then what happens maybe is like, okay, they got a Blackish. We need a Blackish on our network. Oh, well, we can't call it Blackish because they have a Blackish. So are there any Spanish comedians we can call the show Brownish? Spanish, something like that. So they want to tap into the market for money, but they're not comfortable with it being their audience.
Right, like it's more of a quick cash grab instead of like the authenticity. Right. So, like for example,
it's not like they believe in it.
Yeah, like it's just more like it's someone else is successful, so we'll give it a try, and then whenever we feel like pulling the plug, we can. And that's kind of how I feel about. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I am obligated to show the third clip. And
please do.
Because I want to. We're going to probably end this in about 20 minutes. And that's only so I can cook dinner for my wife.
Yeah. Oh, please, yeah.
Otherwise, you have to come cook dinner for my wife.
Oh, well, I mean, it might take a couple days, but sure, I'll do it.
Oh, she'll be starved. No, she'll be hungry when she gets in the house. She'll be really angry if she had to wait that long.
It's not suffice.
Yeah. So this is the third piece, and this is the one that actually has the Michael Jackson stuff in it.
All right.
So here we go.
Stay over here. You guys are cool. But I don't really believe in aliens, y'all. I just don't. You can agree to disagree with me, but if aliens did exist and they did come down to Earth, I think the only reason they abduct people is just to talk shit about our technology. They're just like, hey, hold on. Y'all still using zippers in this motherfucker? Like, we mastered interstellar travel, and y'all using buttons? Y'all need to get y'all shit together. That's why we stick shit up your ass. Good. You all, why y'all like ass jokes? I feel great. I did my homework. Like, I want to ask y'all a question, just to make sure I'm not losing my fucking mind, all right? Raise your hand if you think Kanye West is crazy. Raise your hand. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. One nigga, mostly white people. Okay. That's good. Like, I don't think Kanye is crazy. Like, I just think it's about his life circumstances, right? Has anybody noticed ever since Kanye started dating Kim Kardashian, it's been a little weird? Anybody notice that shit? I think the Kardashians are the monsters from Space Jam, sticking talent from these niggas. Yeah, niggas and aliens. Good. I like that. I got one more joke for you real quick. And all right, this is on a serious note, all right? All right. Raise your hand if you think Michael Jackson's a weirdo. Raise your hand. Don't be bashful. Come on now. You too, yeah. You all right? And like, I would agree with you, because he's getting a baby over the blanket, but in reality, I think you have to look at his childhood, right? Has anyone ever considered Michael Jackson's dance moves him avoiding an ass whooping? I'm being dead ass serious. He's like, sorry, Dad, I should have took out the trash earlier. Or his ad lib was like, ooh! You think he made that up? That's an ass whooping sound. Shit, I should have won a Grammy every time I got my ass beat. Well, that's my time. Thank y'all very much. I'm Aaron Bullitt. He's your host.
Yeah, solid. And again, it's just funny as I listen to it, I think I was talking. That's why I'm glad I did that, because I kind of learned that I talk fast, especially because of the time. So it makes me think like, okay, well, maybe I should. That's one of the first indicators of I should slow down,
Right.
And maybe say less, but enunciate more. So that's, again, thank you for showing. I think that's the hardest part about comedy sometimes for me, is watching myself, because I'm like,
believe me, I have a lot of people who are very good comedians, in my mind anyway. And I reached out to them when I first started doing the show, because I wanted, I wanted as many different styles of comedy represented, and many experiences in comedy represented as possible. Because the whole purpose is the whole premise is that we were not always as good as we are now. That we all sucked, and we worked at not being sucky anymore to become professional comedians.
right.
That's and not everybody had the same path to get there. Or even the ones that walked the same path may not have seen it the same way. So that was the whole thing. So some people I reached out to, and they go, "Oh man, that's such a good idea." That we'll look, and they said, "So wait a minute, you mean you look at my early stuff, and then we talk about it?" Yeah, so you can talk about how much you've grown from that point to this point. And they'd be like, I can't look at it. I can't. No. It's just so bad. I can't look. I said, no, that's the whole point. They said, no, I really can't. But thanks I'm glad you thought about me. Yeah. I said, okay, fine. So I there's like 6 people on my list that I really want on the show that won't do it because they can't look at the old material.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard. I'm not going to sit here and say this shit's easy, but I think that's something that I've tried to do better at, is looking at myself, because that's one of the biggest things that I receive from myself and hear is, I'm funny. I just get really excited. Like every joke that you heard I love it. I get excited to tell it, but when I get excited, I stutter or I slur my words. So it's taught me to like breathe and relax.
Yes.
And everyone's different, everyone has different quirks they want to work on or things that they can tighten up. So it's like, that's why I kind of was saying earlier, to me, it's a spiritual practice. It's like meditation, right? You kind of have to look at yourself. You have to say, well, what are things that I have? And the only person that it matters to is you, because I could speak really fast and no one would really care, but I care about it. And I want to work on it. But it's also on the same token of, if I don't want to work on it, I don't have to. But it's like, and that's why I say, going full circle with this is, that's my whole philosophy with comedy, from the business philosophy. It's, what do I feel like doing? Where do I want to go? And I think a lot of people don't know where they want to go or what they want to do, or allow themselves the time to do that. So that's why, you watch all these dark side of comedies and stories. And I think it kind of boils down to, everybody's focused on the business or the thing. People focus on the fame, but not the craft. And I have taken a redirection in my career early to like, no, I want to focus on the craft. And I was gonna say something about SNL because we were talking about that.
Right.
I think, and I'm gonna be honest, I think that's what I think. I think black comedy, sketch comedy is so under fucking valued. Like the last Key and Peele came off the air 8 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And I think, wow, there has not been a successful black sketch comedy show because if you, for me, go and
What about
simply,
black? There's a show called Black Woman Sketch Comedy Show with
I mean,
Robin.
yeah, I mean, okay, I agree, but but what I mean by that is like I don't mean to disrespect them and say they're not a sketch comic because they are. I do love their material.
Right.
But what I mean is even with them, they don't get that respect. Like
Right.
about it, but like SNL, you solidify SNL, right? But
Yeah.
with latest sketch comedy show, Key and Peele, Chappelle Show, and Living Color, I'd even put Mad TV in that category. Like I would put that because I think their comedy, even though they're a diverse crowd, they tend to have more black humor, which I fucking enjoyed.
Hi, I'm GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Done Way Past Funny. Thank you for watching our continued interview with comedian Aaron Bullitt. And please come back to watch more of our interview with Aaron Bullitt. And when you come back to join us, bring a friend.